Okay, so this is the split we made less than a month and a half ago probably. And we put 2 frames of bees in here. A brood with bees. We've been feeding them pollen patties and sugar water. Last weekend, a week ago, we put 2 empty frames in. And they were building comb on that frame. That was the inside right here. The other side is empty. And this is another frame that we put in empty last week. So their bee population has exploded. They had lots of capped brood, lots of resources, and have really filled this hive in well. And this is, we're calling Ethel.
Betty.
Oh, this is Betty. Yeah, this is Betty. Okay. This is the second frame in. Lots of bee bread and honey. Look at those resources. And this is the end of August. August 28th today. And they are still bringing in lots of pollen, which is interesting because we're feeding pollen patty as well. But they don't seem to have a problem finding pollen right now.
Look at that.
But this is definitely a resource frame. Okay. Wow.
Ooh.
So we have lots of brood here. You can see all the hatched bees, bee holes. And you don't see Queenie there anywhere. And lots of honey. You can back that off a little bit. Lots of honey on the outer edge and the top. Nice fresh new stuff.
Wow.
I have been feeding sugar water, so I got honey around this brood. Empty brood. And I'm not seeing larvae in that empty brood, so I think it's pretty recently empty brood. Those are a little bit attached.
Ooh.
So this is, you start it?
Yes.
This is our 4th frame in. Tons of brood. Still haven't seen the queen. Lots of, this is older capped honey. So this is one of those center frames that we'd probably put in there originally. And it is full of capped brood. Lots of bees. You know, what we're trying to do is just get them to fill this hive in with resources to going into fall and winter, to where their numbers are sufficient, their space is sufficient and filled, and they're prepared for the winter. This is another frame that we put in there, that there was a little bit of comb right here on the bottom of this, because this was a super frame that had brood on it. And they filled out the rest. Can you back it up? They filled out the rest of this comb just as orderly as if it was framed. And there's tons of bee bread here. This is massive bee bread. And obviously they have a lot of uncapped, so they have some capped brood left here. Lots of bee bread in there. Just, I'm trying to find the larva. It's kind of hard to see.
You want to come out in the sun? Pinch.
Yeah, they're just packing bee bread in between that brood. I'm not really seeing much larva though. I kind of wonder, when they're going to back off on making bees, because they really have a lot of bees right now and a lot of brood.
Oh, there's fresh larva.
Yeah, there's definitely fresh larva. So they're capping off that bottom section. This looks like it's hatched out. I'm not really seeing larvae in those empty cells yet, but they have their resources put up well. And I think this is probably one that we put in empty. I think we only gave them these 2 frames originally. I really haven't been looking for the queens as much as we should be.
Well,
I don't know if you are.
I'm looking. Oh, there's larva, fresh. A lot of it.
This definitely looks like older brood, so I think this is one of the frames we added initially. Let's get a look at this. We definitely have a lot of cap brood there. Oop, look at that bee. Hasn't come out yet. It's uncapped on top. Unless there's...
Let me see if I... Oh.
You see the pollen right there?
Try and... Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah. So let's see what we
I
got.
saw... There's another one.
So, lots of bee bread, it looks like. Oh, look at all that larvae.
That's what I was showing.
Wow.
Lots of larvae.
Yeah.
No.
They're still hard at making bees. The question is how long...
Look at all that larvae.
Some of that brood really is dark. The cap brood.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because it's just old brood. I think this is definitely one of the old frames we gave them. Initially, the two.
There she is. She's on this side, right in the center.
Oh yeah, look at that
See if I
girl.
can get her on camera. There she is.
She's doing awesome. This is a good queen.
Ooh.
Lots of bee bread, lots of brood, larvae. I mean, that is a lot of uncapped or capped brood. They still have to hatch. And then the next one looks like all honey. They are really doing their job. Put that one in nice and careful like. Okay. This is the 8th frame. We have 9 in here plus a feeder. Cram. This is massive honey. Looks like bee bread as well, huh?
I do see some bee bread. Wow.
This is just a resource frame. Lots of, this is uncapped honey, but this is all going in honey right here. A little bit of bee bread maybe at the bottom. But they're doing awesome. They certainly have everything they need. This is the frame we put on last week. Same as the other one. One side is developing a lot of comb. On the other side, look at that red cell.
See that? Oh, somebody just stuck their head in there?
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. I'll wait for it to get out. Got her head stuck in there. The other side's pretty much empty. There's bees on it, so maybe they're working it, but... Oops.
Oops.
Can't really get away from it. Gotta get them out. Okay. So... This is an awesome hive. Just starting with 2 frames of brood and 2 frames of bees. And this to be this prolific. So we got some pollen coming into this one now, which is good. This is a Ethel, which was a hive split that we did around the same time. It's been no more than 2 months, but I think it's been closer to 6 weeks. So this one struggled more than Betty did. A little slower to get going. We had a top feeder on. We've changed to inside feeders. Seemed to work better for Betty. So I think they were struggling with robbers. We had some ants here, and they also have another hive that was close. Hard to tell what exactly was going on, but we're starting to see this one pulling in lots of pollen, which makes me think they've probably built up their worker population and they've got some foragers out. Whereas initially we gave them a couple frames of brood and bees, just the same, and requeened. And they had more frames with full comb on them, but they were definitely slower to get going. And now they seem to be thriving. They're definitely chomping down on the pollen patties, but they're bringing in pollen now, which they weren't before. So these guys, I think these pollen patties are done. So let's get one of those feeders out, and then we'll start pulling frames and see what's going on.
You want me to get you frame holders?
I got it. They're definitely a bit behind. So, okay, we got honey on this side.
Nice.
So they're starting to put some up. That side looks pretty.
Ooh, what's that? Bee bread?
You can see where that damaged comb is where they were attaching it to the feeder.
Mm-hmm.
So they're working on it. We got a little bit of honey on that frame. Let's see what we got in the next frame. They weren't building out their comb or the brood like the other one was. Hopefully it's time to catch up. This one's got honey to it.
Well, there's honey on this side.
This side has a lot of honey, some bee bread. Actually, a lot of bee bread. And, you know, bees with pollen. So this is a resource frame, which is kind of what you'd expect towards.
Look at the pollen on her leg over here. Wow.
Yeah.
She just went down that way.
So we got some older honey, a bunch of newer honey going in. So they're working on putting up resources, which is awesome. Because they're going to need it. Hopefully they're using those resources to make some new bees. So this frame should be more of a, hopefully have some brood on it. I think these are really our center frames from the beginning. We've tried to keep them in the middle. So I'm going to use the grabber because I'm probably going to be heavier. And I don't want to mess with the queen. Okay, we got a nice big patch of brood over here. Capped brood, some uncapped larvae, a bunch of small larvae. So they're making bees there.
There's uncapped here.
Yeah, it looks the same on that side. So this is definitely a good brood frame. They just don't quite have the numbers yet, but they were way behind in making brood and hatching. So we know they're behind on the other one, but the question is, are they making that progress? Now that we've set this hive up the same, we dealt with the ants, and we've put the feeders inside the hive. And I really think they had a robbing problem. I think they were probably getting robbed of their larvae at first. Because we saw initially there were bees covering their brood, but where they weren't covering the brood, there was no larva of any size. So I think their larva was being robbed at first. So this has tons of larvae. Let's take this out in the sun a bit. So we have lots of larvae of all sizes in the empty brood, and all this capped brood that's probably either recently capped or hatching. And it looks like, yeah, there's larvae in that empty brood. They've got some honey going down in the corner, but this center section is all active brood.
Can I see the other side? Where you were saying you saw the larva? Okay.
Look down in there. See all that small larva? Big and small, but if you look down in here, there's small larvae.
I guess it's too shady. I think I see it, but
I don't want to roll.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Side.
You're fine.
So Queen's not on that frame. We hadn't seen her yet. I wasn't really specifically looking.
I was.
But she should be hopefully in the next 2 frames.
They seem to be really calm.
So this is our 5th frame in. Haven't seen the Queen. Maybe she'll pop up here. Oh, she's over here. And this is full of brood. I got.
Oh, there's one coming out. Can I get a close up? She's wiggling her way out.
Yeah. Head first.
Head first. Oh, she just poked it back in. Oh, here she comes.
Yeah. So Queen's over here. There's.
Oh, honey, she's coming out. Turn her around so you can see. Oh, right there.
Yeah, for sure. Does she duck in when? Oh, I see. I don't know if we can focus that close.
I'm trying to.
That's
Look
fine.
at that.
I need to move on.
Okay, where's Queenie?
There's lots of pollen. Queenie's on this side.
Oh.
And see, that right side is like empty brood, and the left side is more full capped brood. But she's making bees, and they're bringing in pollen. They're putting up honey.
She definitely looks like she's grown a little fat.
Well, they really look like they're finally organizing this hive, and they're thriving. So I think if we have the weather for it, they're gonna have a, a reasonable bee explosion. So this is our 6th frame out of 7. So we have 2 hive feeders and 7 frames. And over here, it's mostly honey and bee bread with some brood. On this side. And that's just a lot of brood. So these 3 or 4 frame center frames are definitely their brood production facility. Oh crap! This smashed a bee.
Oh.
So we definitely have. It looks like larvae that's about to be capped, and a lot of capped larvae or capped cells. So there's large larvae between a lot of this capped. So it just looks like those are behind the others maybe. But this is the back side of it, and you can see in the sunlight you can see all that white larva. So they're working on this. I think this is the first lane since we put them in.
Yeah.
This hasn't been developed by this queen until now. This is the outside of their center. So, I don't want to mess with it. So this frame was new last week.
Wow.
Or no, apparently not.
Well, it's got a ton of honey on this side.
Yeah, there's honey on the top, there's some bee bread. It's hard to see in the shade. It's definitely a honey frame on that side, and that's the side that faces the center.
Well, there's bee bread over here.
Yeah, it's just resources.
Yep.
And this side, yeah, they're doing the same. They're putting honey and bee bread up. Mostly honey is what I can tell. That's some nice looking comb.
Hmm?
They really cleaned it up well.
Yes, they did.
Done their housekeeping. But I really hate this box, because look at this.
I know.
It just falls. We need to change this box. This is Bertha. Here's our massive swarm hive from 3 months ago maybe. And she just exploded in bees. Had massive everything. And this is the second super they filled. And this is August 28th, so we're basically just checking. We were hoping they'd build comb in this after they filled the first one, but they just put up honey, and it got to the point where it's like, well, you know, they had so many bees, we didn't want to take all their space away. We put a second brood chamber on here, but they weren't really building any comb. We thought maybe using all those bees to build comb and feeding them sugar water would help that process, but they never went into that mode. They just seem to be obsessed with putting up honey. This down here is full, has been for a long time. It's what they're gonna winter in. And we put a couple of black plastic frames in there that kind of screwed up the frames. Because they didn't build on them, but they built comb and honey into them from the adjoining frames. So that was kind of a negative, but the queen is awesome. She's been, you know, putting everything where it's supposed to be. She made tons and tons of bees. And now it seems like they've kind of cut back and they're maybe heading towards more winter mode, which is great. Let's see, where's my grabber?
In the toolbox.
Yeah, that's what I thought it would be. You can see they had tons of bees, and we didn't want to. We wanted them to have space to do something. And so here they're obviously building comb, and they're still putting honey up on it. But this is the outside frame, so we'll see what they got going as we go in. But clearly we can leave this on. We are not feeding them anymore. We haven't been for a couple weeks, and they're still getting, you know, materials and bringing them in and putting them up. So obviously there's pollen out there, and because the other two hives are really just bringing in tons of pollen, but they're trying to build their populations and fill up their space. These guys are way past that, and we're just trying to, as they cut back in the fall, you know, provide them space and pull their honey as early as possible so that we're not screwing up their space too late in the year. But that's over half capped honey there, and that's the second frame in. That's the outside of it. That's less than half capped, but they're certainly filling it up and capping it. So
oops.
yeah. Oh man, that sucks. Okay, see how they're just starting to cap that off? It's pretty awesome. Mostly capped or partially capped and uncapped.
Yep.
And looking in at the next frame, it's 3/4 capped.
Wow.
So I don't really want to pull every one, and I just screwed them by dropping that.
Well, hopefully
ball
they'll.
of honeycomb.
Well, unless you can reach it. Oh, good.
So we're just gonna pull this frame to see where they're at on this side, and they always have developed the honey faster on this side of the hive. And I think it's because that's the side the sun hits, but that is a heavy frame.
I would say
And that
so.
is almost fully capped.
Look at that beautiful honey.
So this is all honey we have to rob.
That one's on there too, honey. That's full capped on that side.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say right now that from this frame to about this frame is fully capped, or full and being capped. That frame had partial cap. These two frames had partial cap, and the next one was full cap. And when I say full, it's like 70, 80%, 90%. So this super's full. And you know, one thing we don't know is how much of that honey was sugar water that we fed them, because we wanted them to build comb, but they just took the honey up. So it's like there's obviously some sugar water honey in there, but not all of it.
Right.
You know, and who knows what the percentage is.
Well, if we're leaving it for them to get, we don't care.
Well, the thing is, this is the
if
last
we're
show.
taking it,
I
we
mean,
can always see what the content is and feed it back.
Well, they don't need resources down below anymore. They're packed. So right now it's just like, well, what are they doing with the bees they have? You know, and last time we looked at down below, it was apparent that they were backing off on making massive amounts of bees. But they were still had larvae and everything they needed, they just weren't putting it, you know, brood everywhere they could. So they're obviously backing off and making bees, but this is almost full, and the bees that she has are way more than she's going to need, you know, going into fall. So the question is, what do you do with this space? You know, once this is full, they don't have any extra space anymore, other than just a place for bees to be. But once they cap this, we're talking like maybe the next week this is all going to be capped. So I'm thinking next weekend we're looking at harvesting. Ready? That sucker's heavy. So, we still got smoke left?
Yep.
See, we know this is all honey right here, from that side of that frame over. And they obviously have some funky honey over here. This frame we might be able to put a better one in. Wow. Maybe they're gonna work on that. I mean, it seems like they're trying. I don't know. That next one's already kind of funky, you know. But I don't think we need to pull this whole thing apart.